My parents have left me out of every family trip for more than 20 years. You never fit in on vacations, it's best if we don't bring you. But when I went on a 5-star, all expenses paid getaway with my new family, they lost it. The first time my parents left me behind, it felt like a tiny, deliberate cut. But that cut festered, slowly poisoning my view of myself and what family truly meant, until I decided to make the final incision. It was summer, I was 8, and the air hummed with the promise of sun-drenched days. I'd spent weeks drawing beaches, certain we were finally going somewhere as a family. My sister, Isabel, packed her purple suitcase with swimsuits, while my own empty duffel sat on my bed. My mom, her arms full of travel-sized lotions, walked past me 3 times that afternoon, never once suggesting I start packing. "Where's my suitcase?" I finally asked my dad, as he loaded the car. He didn't even turn around. "You're staying with Grandma Helen this week." My stomach dropped. "But I thought we were going to Malibu." "We are," he said, slamming the trunk shut. "You get car sick, honey. Remember last year, going to Pennsylvania? You threw up twice. Your mother and I talked about it, and we think it's better if you sit this one out." I'd thrown up once on that Pennsylvania trip, and only because Isabel had eaten an entire bag of sour gummies, then kept breathing her rancid breath in my face. Even at 8, the car-sick excuse was thin enough to see through. Grandma Helen lived 40 minutes away in a house that smelled like mothballs. She was kind, in a distant way, the type of grandmother who asked about school but never remembered your answers. I spent that week watching game shows while my family sent postcards from Malibu. Isabel's handwriting sprawled across one, "The ocean is amazing. Wish you were here." "Not really." She'd added a smiley face after "not really," like cruelty was funnier with punctuation. They came home tanned and relaxed, full of stories about dolphin watching. I'd gained 2 pounds from Grandma Helen's endless butter cookies and learned absolutely nothing except that, apparently, I wasn't worth bringing along. The pattern continued. Every major trip, every vacation requiring planning or expense, somehow didn't include me. At 10, they went to the Grand Canyon. I stayed with Aunt Brenda, who worked night shifts and left me alone with frozen dinners. At 12, they toured Boston, while I spent the week at a day camp with teenagers who mostly stared at their phones. "You wouldn't enjoy the museums," Mom said when I asked why I couldn't come. "You hate walking, and Boston requires a lot of walking." I ran track that year. I'd placed 3rd in the district championships for the mile run just 2 months earlier. She'd missed the meet, getting her nails done for family photos, the ones they took without me because I had a weird expression in the test shots. Isabel went on every trip. Isabel, who actually did get car sick and once vomited on a tour bus in front of 30 strangers. Isabel, who complained about walking from the couch to the kitchen. But Isabel was the golden child, the one who looked like Mom, who laughed at Dad's terrible jokes, and knew exactly how to tilt her head when she wanted something. I looked like Dad's side of the family, all sharp angles and dark features Mom said made me striking in a tone that clearly meant unfortunate. I didn't laugh at the right times. I asked too many questions. I pointed out inconsistencies and called out unfairness, which made me difficult and exhausting. By 16, I'd stopped asking about vacations entirely. They went to Florida that summer, some luxury resort in Orlando. I stayed home alone for the first time, and it felt like a victory. No more awkward conversations with relatives who barely knew me. No more pretending I was fine while everyone else enjoyed their freedom. I got a job at a coffee shop, working mornings, saving every paycheck. Something had crystallized in me during those 2 weeks alone. My family didn't want me around. I'd spent years trying to figure out why, trying to fix whatever was wrong with me. But maybe nothing was wrong with me. Maybe they were just cruel. College couldn't come fast enough. I worked throughout high school, saved aggressively, and applied for every scholarship. State school, nothing fancy, but it was 6 hours away, and that distance felt like salvation. Mom cried at my graduation, big, theatrical tears that made relatives pat her shoulder sympathetically. My baby's leaving, she sobbed into Dad's chest. I wanted to laugh. She'd been trying to leave me behind my entire life. Now I was finally doing it myself. My first year away was lonely but liberating. I studied business, worked part-time, and built a life that had nothing to do with family vacations I'd never been invited on. Isabel called occasionally, usually when she wanted something, her voice sugary sweet as she asked if I could look over her college application essays. "You're so good at this stuff," she'd say. And I'd help her, because some pathetic part of me still craved her approval. I graduated with honors and landed a job at a marketing firm in Dallas. The work was demanding but rewarding. I discovered I had a talent for digital strategy my bosses appreciated. I rented a tiny studio in Uptown, made friends with coworkers who actually enjoyed my company, and built something that belonged entirely to me. My family visited once in 3 years. They were in Dallas for Isabel's bachelorette party, and Mom suggested meeting for brunch like she was doing me some enormous favor. I met them at an overpriced cafe, where Isabel showed off her ring and talked wedding plans for 90 minutes straight. "You'll be a bridesmaid, of course," she said, as if it was a generous offer. The wedding was exactly as insufferable as I'd anticipated. I wore the ugly dress, smiled for photos, and gave a toast Isabel's friends described as sweet, but kind of weird. I tried to be genuine, to talk about growing up together and the complexity of sisterhood, but apparently people prefer generic platitudes about love. After the wedding, I saw my family maybe twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Obligatory appearances where I played my role as the family's token achiever. Look at her successful career. Look at her impressive apartment. They displayed me like a trophy when it suited them, but never actually invited me into their lives. The vacation thing continued. Italy for Mom and Dad's 30th, Bahamas for Isabel's first anniversary. A cruise through the Greek islands 2 summers later. Each trip was documented extensively on social media. Hundreds of photos of my family looking happy and close, while I scrolled through them alone in my Oak Lawn apartment, feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. "We didn't think you'd be able to get time off work," Mom said when I asked about the Greece trip. "You're always so busy with your career." I had 4 weeks of vacation time that year. I'd mentioned it during our last phone call. Something broke in me after that. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly and completely. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn a place in my family, trying to be good enough, or interesting enough, or worthy enough to include. I was done. I stopped calling as frequently, stopped trying to coordinate visits, stopped performing the role of grateful daughter who was supposed to appreciate whatever scraps of attention they tossed my way. They barely noticed. Then I met Caleb. He worked in finance, had kind eyes, and a laugh that made me feel like I'd said something genuinely clever, rather than just acceptable. We met at a networking event, bonding over terrible wine and our shared observation that everyone in the room was trying too hard. He asked me to dinner, then to another dinner, then suddenly 6 months had passed, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. Caleb's family was everything mine wasn't. His parents, Eleanor and Arthur, actually listened when you talked. His sister, Madison, included me in group texts and inside jokes without making it feel like hazing. They had family dinners where people asked about your day and meant it, where laughter came from actual humor, not performance. "Your family seems nice," Caleb said carefully after meeting my parents for the first time. We'd driven down for Christmas, and the visit had been predictably awkward. Mom had spent the entire time comparing me to Isabel, who'd recently had her first child and was apparently now a parenting expert despite being completely overwhelmed. "They're fine," I said. "They barely asked you anything about your life." "That's pretty standard." He looked at me for a long moment, his expression sad in a way that made my chest tight. "That's not okay." I'd spent so long normalizing my family's behavior that having someone point out its strangeness felt disorienting, like I'd been walking around with a limp for years and someone finally asked why I was hurt. Caleb proposed on a weekend trip to Oregon. Nothing elaborate, just the two of us on a beach at sunset. I said yes before he'd finished the question. We planned a small wedding, mostly his family and my friends from college and work. My parents came, though Mom spent half the reception talking about Isabel's wedding and how traditional and elegant it had been. Translation: Isabel's wedding cost 3 times as much and followed all the proper social conventions. I didn't care. I was marrying someone who actually wanted me around. The first year of marriage was adjusting and growing and building our life together. Caleb got promoted. I became director of digital strategy. We bought a townhouse. Spent weekends antiquing and trying new restaurants. Traveled to Denver and Nashville and Toronto, small trips, nothing extravagant, but they were ours. Then Eleanor and Arthur announced their 40th wedding anniversary trip. We want to do something special, Eleanor said over family dinner. A real celebration with everyone we love. She was looking directly at me when she said it. They'd rented a villa in Provence for 2 weeks. Not a hotel, not a resort, but an actual French villa with a chef and a pool and views of rolling vineyards. They booked rooms for Caleb and me, for Madison and her husband, for Arthur's brother and his wife. 14 people total. All expenses paid. 2 weeks in Provence during peak season. I can't accept this, I said immediately. This must cost a fortune. Your family, Arthur said simply. This is what we want to do. I cried in the car on the way home. Caleb held my hand while I ugly sobbed in the passenger seat. Years of exclusion and hurt finally spilling out. Someone wanted me on their vacation. Someone thought I was worth the expense, worth the trouble, worth including. We're going, Caleb said firmly. You deserve this. I requested the time off work immediately. My boss approved it within an hour, congratulating me and telling me I'd earned the break. I bought new clothes, nice luggage, a camera that could actually capture the kind of photos I'd been seeing from other people's European vacations my whole life. Then I made a mistake. I told my mother. We were on the phone discussing some mundane detail about Isabel's daughter's birthday party, and Eleanor's anniversary trip came up naturally. I mentioned it casually, not bragging, just sharing news the way normal families do. Provence, Mom's voice went sharp. For 2 weeks. How nice. Must be lovely to be so included. The words were ice. The guilt hit immediately, like she'd pressed a button installed in my chest 30 years ago. Mom, your father and I are planning our anniversary trip to, our 35th. Not that anyone seems to care. I didn't know you were planning something. Well, we are. But obviously nothing as fancy as a villa in Provence. We're just simple people who don't need extravagant displays of wealth to feel loved. She hung up before I could respond. I should have known that wouldn't be the end of it. My phone started ringing constantly. Mom called 3 times the next day, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails about how hurt she was, how ungrateful I'd become, how I'd obviously chosen Caleb's family over my own. Dad sent a long email about responsibility and priorities and how disappointed he was in my choices. Isabel texted, "Really? You're going to France while Mom and Dad are struggling?" Classy. My parents weren't struggling. Dad had just retired with a full pension. Mom worked part-time at a boutique because she enjoyed it. They owned their house outright and took at least 2 vacations a year, including their upcoming 33rd anniversary trip to Willamette Valley they'd mentioned at Christmas. But apparently, I was supposed to feel guilty for accepting an invitation they'd never extended. The messages escalated. Mom started calling Caleb's parents. These rambling phone calls where she explained how I was pulling away from my real family and how concerned she was about my judgment. She'd somehow gotten their number from a relative. Eleanor handled it gracefully, but I was mortified. They've called 6 times this week, Caleb said, his patience visibly fraying. Your mother left a 20-minute voicemail about how we're creating division in the family. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This is insane. You're allowed to go on vacation. But the guilt was crushing. My family had spent decades making me feel like I was the problem, and old patterns die hard. I started wondering if I should cancel the trip. If keeping the peace was worth giving up Provence. Then the photo album arrived. Mom mailed it to our house. No note attached. Just a leather-bound album filled with family vacation photos spanning 25 years. Every trip they'd taken without me. Carefully documented and arranged. Malibu, Grand Canyon, Boston, Florida, Italy, the Bahamas, Greece. Page after page of my parents and Isabel smiling on beaches and at landmarks, living a family life that never included me. The last page had a photo from their most recent trip to Utah. They'd gone skiing last winter, just the three of them, and never mentioned it. In the picture, they were standing in front of a mountain lodge, arms around each other, looking like a complete family, because without me, they were. Caleb found me on the kitchen floor, the album open in my lap, tears streaming down my face. What is this? He picked up the album, flipping through pages with increasing horror. She sent you this? Why would she send you this? I think she wants me to remember my place. Your place? His voice was shaking. Your place is anywhere you damn well want to be. Your place is not begging for scraps from people who treat you like garbage. He was right. I'd spent 32 years accepting my family's treatment as somehow normal, somehow deserved. But looking at those photos, at decades of deliberate exclusion, something fundamental shifted. They'd never wanted me on their vacations. They'd made that abundantly clear. So why did they care where I went now? The answer was obvious and infuriating. They didn't want me around, but they also didn't want anyone else to want me. They needed me in my assigned role, the daughter who tried too hard, who was never quite good enough, who accepted exclusion with grace and gratitude. Me having a family who actually included me disrupted their narrative. I called Mom the next morning. I got your package. Oh, good. I thought you might like to reminisce. Reminisce about all the trips you left me out of. Honey, we've talked about this. You never enjoyed family vacations. I was 8 years old the first time you left me behind. I didn't get a choice about whether I enjoyed them. You're being dramatic. I'm going to Provence, Mom. I'm going on a vacation with people who actually want me there, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Of course, you're going. You've made your priorities very clear. Yes, I have. My priority is being around people who treat me with basic respect. I hung up before she could respond. The calls continued, but I stopped answering. Dad sent increasingly aggressive emails about loyalty and family obligations. Isabel texted essays about my selfishness and how I was breaking Mom's heart. I blocked them all. Caleb's family didn't understand the drama. Why are they so upset? Madison asked over coffee. They never took you on vacations anyway. That's exactly why they're upset. She shook her head. That's toxic. It was. I just never had the distance to see it clearly. Provence was perfect. The villa was stone and stucco with terracotta tiles and shuttered windows that opened to vineyard views. Our room had a balcony where we drank coffee every morning, watching the sun rise over the hills. Eleanor's anniversary dinner was at a local restaurant with wine that tasted like summer and pasta made by someone's grandmother. We spent days exploring hilltop towns, learning bad French, eating gelato at every opportunity. Arthur told terrible dad jokes in 3 languages. Madison and I got tipsy on Prosecco and laughed until we couldn't breathe. Caleb held my hand through cobblestone streets and kissed me in front of the nice cathedral and told me I deserved this happiness. I believed him. I posted a few photos on social media. Nothing excessive, just some shots of the villa and the countryside. Caleb and me at dinner, toasting. A sunset from our balcony. My phone exploded. Mom called 16 times in one day. Isabel sent a message that was just the word seriously repeated 12 times. Dad's email had the subject line family emergency and contained 3 paragraphs about betrayal. I didn't read past the first sentence. They're losing their minds, Caleb observed, scrolling through the notifications. Your mom tried to friend request my cousin to see more photos. Should I delete the posts? Absolutely not. You're on vacation. You're allowed to document it. He was right, but the guilt still gnawed at me. Some deeply programmed part of my brain kept insisting I was doing something wrong, that sharing my happiness was an act of aggression. Then Aunt Brenda called. I almost didn't answer. Brenda was Mom's older sister, the one I'd stayed with during the Grand Canyon trip. We weren't close, but she'd always been kind. I saw your photos, she said. Provence looks beautiful. It's incredible. Good. I'm glad you're having a wonderful time. There was a pause. Your mother called me. I know. She wants me to tell you you're being selfish and cruel. My stomach dropped. And I told her she's out of her mind. Brenda's voice was firm. I remember the summer you stayed with me. You were 10 years old and you cried yourself to sleep every night because you missed your family. Your parents were at Old Faithful and you were in my guest room sobbing into a pillow. I'd forgotten about that. Or maybe I deliberately suppressed it. Your mother has been calling family members all week trying to get people on her side, Brenda said. She's telling everyone you've abandoned the family, that you think you're too good for them now. She even showed me that photo album she sent you like it was evidence of something. Evidence of what? I think she thought it proved how much family time you'd missed. How left out you should feel. But all it proved to me is that she spent decades excluding you and is now furious that you found people who don't. I started crying silently, tears running down my face while Brenda talked. You don't owe them guilt, she said quietly. You don't owe them your happiness or your vacation or your peace of mind. You deserve to be somewhere you're wanted. After we hung up, I sat on the balcony and let myself feel everything I'd been suppressing. The hurt, the anger, the grief for the family I'd wanted but never had. Caleb found me there an hour later, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and sat with me while I cried. I'm done, I said. Finally, I'm actually done. No more guilt. No more trying. They don't want me in their life except as someone to blame, and I'm not doing it anymore. Caleb kissed my forehead. Good. The rest of the vacation was lighter. I turned off notifications from my family and focused on being present. We took a cooking class where I learned to make pasta from scratch. We visited wineries and medieval churches and got lost in Nice looking for a restaurant Arthur swore existed but probably didn't. We stayed up late playing cards and telling stories. And I felt something settle in my chest that had been unsettled my entire life. This was what family could be. This was what it felt like to belong. We came home tanned and happy with a suitcase full of olive oil and wine and ceramic bowls from a market in Avignon. I posted a final photo, Caleb and me at the airport, smiling genuinely, caption reading, best 2 weeks ever. Grateful for family. The messages were immediate and vicious. Mom, I hope you're proud of yourself. Dad, you've made your choice clear. Don't come crying to us when Caleb's family gets tired of you, too. Isabel, you're dead to me. I blocked all 3 of them. The next few months were strange. I kept expecting to feel guilty, to regret cutting them off so completely. Instead, I felt lighter, freer, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged, and someone had finally lifted it. Eleanor and Arthur invited us for Sunday dinner every week. Madison texted memes and random thoughts at odd hours. I had a family that actually functioned like one, and I stopped apologizing for it. Then Thanksgiving happened. Aunt Brenda called to warn me. Your mother is planning a big Thanksgiving dinner. She's telling everyone you'll be there, that you've come to your senses. I'm not going. I know, but she's telling people you are. And when you don't show up, she's going to make a scene about how you've abandoned her on the holidays. Let her. I'm just giving you a heads up. She's also invited several family members you haven't seen in years. I think she wants witnesses to your rejection. I spent Thanksgiving with Caleb's family. Eleanor made turkey with all the traditional sides. Arthur told the story about the time he accidentally deep-fried a turkey still partially frozen and nearly burned down the garage. Madison's kids ran around hyped up on pie. It was chaotic and warm and exactly what a holiday should be. My phone stayed silent all day. Then around 9 p.m., the messages started. Cousins I barely knew asking why I'd missed Thanksgiving. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years telling me Mom was heartbroken. A group chat I'd been added to without consent, filled with family members discussing my selfishness. I left the group chat and turned off my phone. They won't stop, I told Caleb. They're going to keep doing this. Then we keep ignoring them. But it escalated. Mom showed up at my office, making a scene in the lobby about how I'd abandoned her. She stood there crying, telling the receptionist her daughter wouldn't speak to her, that she just wanted to understand what she'd done wrong. Security escorted her out, but the damage was done. My coworkers whispered. My boss called me into a meeting to gently inquire if everything was all right at home. My mother is harassing me, I said bluntly. I've asked her to stop contacting me, and she's now showing up at my workplace. Do you need help? We have resources for employees dealing with family issues. I filed a report with HR documenting the incident. Mom called it making a mockery of family business when Aunt Brenda told her what I'd done. Christmas came. We went to Eleanor and Arthur's, exchanged gifts, watched terrible holiday movies. My phone stayed off. I didn't check social media. I existed in a bubble of chosen family and genuine warmth. Then the letter arrived. It came from a lawyer's office, formal and intimidating. My parents were threatening legal action for grandparents' rights, claiming I was preventing them from having a relationship with future grandchildren. I didn't have children. Caleb and I hadn't even discussed it seriously yet. This is harassment, Caleb said, reading over my shoulder. Pure harassment designed to intimidate you. I called the lawyer the next morning. She reviewed the letter and laughed. They have no case. You don't have children, and even if you did, grandparents' rights are extremely limited. This is a scare tactic. Can we do anything? We can send a cease and desist. If they continue contacting you after that, we can pursue a restraining order for harassment. The cease and desist went out that week. My parents had 10 days to stop all contact or face legal consequences. They responded with a Facebook post. Mom wrote this long, rambling statement about how I'd turned my back on family, how they'd tried everything to maintain a relationship, how Caleb's family had poisoned me against them. She posted the photo album, every page, with captions about all the family memories they'd tried to include me in. The comments were mixed. Some people bought the narrative, leaving sympathetic responses, but others saw through it. Aunt Brenda commented, interesting how all these family memories happened without her. Cousins started commenting, too, pointing out how rarely I'd been at family events, how often I'd been excluded. The narrative Mom was trying to build started crumbling in real time. She deleted the post within 6 hours, but screenshots live forever. Someone sent me the whole thread, and I saved every word. My lawyer was delighted. This establishes a pattern of harassment and defamation. If you want to pursue a restraining order, we have grounds. I thought about it for a week. A restraining order felt nuclear, final, impossible to take back. It would cement the break publicly and legally. My parents would be barred from contacting me, from coming to my home or workplace, from attempting any communication. It felt like freedom. We filed the paperwork in January. The hearing was scheduled for February, and I had to appear in court to explain why I needed protection from my own parents. I'd prepared a statement with my lawyer's help, documenting years of exclusion and emotional mistreatment, culminating in the recent harassment. Mom and Dad showed up, looking shell-shocked, like they genuinely couldn't believe I'd taken it this far. Dad wore a suit. Mom had clearly been crying. Isabel sat behind them in the gallery, glaring at me with pure hatred. The judge read my statement, reviewed the evidence, and asked my parents if they had anything to say. Dad stood up. "Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. We love our daughter. We've always loved her. This whole situation has been blown out of proportion." "Sir," the judge said, "I've reviewed the documentation your daughter submitted, including a photo album you sent her containing pictures of family vacations she was excluded from. Can you explain the purpose of sending that?" Dad faltered. "We thought she'd like to see the memories. Memories of trips she wasn't invited on." Silence. The judge granted the restraining order. My parents were barred from contacting me for 1 year with the option to renew. They had to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. Any violation would result in arrest. Mom started crying. Loud, theatrical sobs that echoed through the courtroom. Isabel put her arm around her, both of them performing grief for an audience. I felt nothing. Caleb held my hand as we left the courthouse. "How do you feel?" "Free." The restraining order held. My parents tested it once, showing up at a restaurant where Caleb and I were having dinner. Someone must have told them where we'd be. I called the police immediately, and they were escorted away before they even made it inside. The violation was documented. They didn't try again. Life continued. I got promoted to VP of Digital Strategy. Caleb and I started talking seriously about children, about the family we wanted to build. Eleanor and Arthur gave us their blessing and started knitting baby blankets speculatively. The first year without my family of origin was strange but increasingly peaceful. No guilt-ridden phone calls. No last-minute demands disguised as invitations. No photo albums designed to remind me of my place. I sent Aunt Brenda a Christmas card. She sent one back with a note, "Proud of you for choosing yourself." Sometimes I still think about that photo album. All those vacations, all those years of exclusion carefully documented. Mom thought she was reminding me of what I'd missed, of where I didn't belong. Instead, she'd given me proof. Proof that I'd spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who'd never intended to give it. Proof that the problem was never me. The restraining order expires next month. My lawyer asked if I want to renew it. Yes, I said immediately. Your parents could contest it. The original grounds were harassment, but if they've maintained no contact, a judge might not see the need. They only maintain no contact because they were legally required to. The second that order expires, they'll start up again. She nodded. Then we'll file for renewal. Caleb thinks I should keep it in place permanently. You're happier without them. Why give them another chance to disrupt that? He's right. The past year has been the best of my life. We're trying for a baby now, planning the nursery, talking about preschools and parenting philosophies. Eleanor and Arthur are over the moon, already planning grandparent trips and making lists of children's books to buy. My child will never know what it's like to be left behind. My child will never watch their family pack suitcases while being told they don't fit in. My child will grow up surrounded by people who actually want them around, who include them not out of obligation, but because love means showing up. Sometimes I wonder if Mom thinks about those vacations differently now, if she ever regrets the choice to exclude me, or if she's rewritten the narrative so thoroughly in her mind that she genuinely believes she did nothing wrong. I wonder if she tells people her daughter abandoned her, leaving out all the years she abandoned me first. Mostly though, I don't think about her at all. Last week, Caleb and I booked a trip to Ireland. Just the two of us before the baby comes and international travel gets complicated. Eleanor and Arthur are watching our dog. Madison made us a list of must-see castles and whiskey distilleries. I posted the booking confirmation on social media because I've stopped hiding my happiness to make other people comfortable. The caption read, "Adventure awaits with my favorite person." My inbox stayed quiet. The restraining order is still in effect. My family can't comment, can't call, can't demand explanations for my choices. I'm going on vacation with someone who wants me there. Have you ever had to choose yourself over the family you were given?